What's up everyone, it's Q from RetroQ Gaming, and if you remember my video a little while back, a few days ago, about the unified Nintendo account system and all the positive stuff that could actually bring to Nintendo owners, this is the other video I referenced that I was making in that video. So if you haven't seen it, I recommend going back and checking that video out. I'll have a link to it in the description below. It'll give you a better understanding of why I think Nintendo needs a unified account system, especially with the upcoming NX, which relates into this video as well, and it'll make more sense if you've seen both of these videos. This video also touches on what I would call an inherent issue, or I don't even know if we'd just... yeah, it's an inherent issue with how Nintendo are handling the potential virtual console and just the virtual console in general. So if you're not familiar with what the virtual console actually is, it's a digital platform across a bunch of Nintendo existing platforms that allows you to download legacy games from, say, it started originally on the Wii, and you could download NES games, SNES games, Mega Drive games, Commodore 64 games, N64 games, TurboGrafx games. There was a bunch of other systems on there as well. Fast forward to the Wii U, it's the same deal. They've also included DS and Wii games on there as well. Now, unfortunately, the exact same games and all don't transfer over in the same way. I'll get onto that now in a minute. But you have a bunch of extra platforms and different games and new games and games that were shared on the Wii U as well. And then you have, it's the same on the 3DS. You've got the 3DS and you've got the NES games, you've got some Game Boy games. It's the same deal. You've got Game Boy Color games, Game Boy Advance games. And on the new 3DS, it has access to all the games that the regular 3DS has on the Virtual Console, as well as Super Nintendo games, which on the handhelds are exclusive to the new 3DS. Nintendo have come out and said that there's a reason for it. They needed the extra power to do the emulation, have pixel perfect emulation and faithful emulation. I'm not even going to touch on that right now in this video. It's not the whole thing. So one of the big issues was that if you've seen the other video, you'd know that there was a whole convoluted process to transfer your Wii account onto your Wii U just to get access to all your Virtual Console games. Now, I'm sure many of you out there, many of you Wii U owners out there who have previously owned Wiis and transferred your account over, like myself, you probably spent a shitload of money on actual Virtual Console games. I've probably spent like €200, the best part of €200 on Virtual Console games just on the Wii. So naturally I wanted to transfer those over to the Wii U, and there was a whole big problem and process in doing the whole thing, and the fact that even to play those games they have to be booted into Wii mode on the Wii U just to play the ones that are only available on the Wii, and the ones that are also available on the Wii U, you have to re-buy them. I don't know why that sounded weird when I said buy, but you have to re-buy them on the actual Wii U. Now I know you get a steep discount if you owned the Wii version on the same account. So sure, that's a little bit of a benefit, but it shouldn't have to be done really, because in theory, with the unified account, like I mentioned in the other video, all of this should all be tied together, and you should be able to just log in and download straight away, instead of all the whole weird account processes and account transfers and all this kind of stuff as well. So, and that brings us to another issue as well, that even though all these platforms use the same, well, with the exception of the Wii, because that one was ported over eventually and integrated, but they all use the same account. The 3DS, the new 3DS, and the Wii U all use your Nintendo Network ID. So the fact is that the Virtual Console does not share across platforms. So even if you have a game that's available on the Wii U, Super Nintendo, Virtual Console, if that same game is available on the 3DS, you cannot use, you have to re-buy it on your 3DS despite using the same account. So that's where I'm going to leave this part of the video, because that's just a quick recap on the Virtual Console in relation to the unified account system that I talked about in the previous video. Once again, I'll have a link to it below. I'd suggest watching that one. It makes what I just said a lot more easier to understand and a lot more relatable, and it'll make the rest of this video from here on out, it'll make a lot more sense. So as far as the rest of it goes, is Nintendo's treatment of the Virtual Console has been pretty damn poor. So when the Virtual Console first came out on the Wii, there was a big fanfare about it. I remember when the actual announcement was made, and it was amazing. It sounded fantastic. So to be able to get all these games and all. Now the problem is you'd have one game worth owning every 6 months. So there was the big announcement with all the details and all, and it sounded really cool. Then it actually launched. And it just almost fell flat in its face. And then, like I said, you'd have maybe one game worth buying every 6 months. But that happened for maybe a year or two. Then there was a period of about 6 months, maybe a year, where they released a slew of games. Good, high quality, big name games. All in a relatively short period of time. And that was fantastic. Everyone loved it. There was a big rush of Nintendo, of just people talking about Nintendo, people talking about the Virtual Console sales. They were off the charts. I knew people back then that were buying Wiis just because there was a sheer amount of quality games in the Virtual Console released in a small amount of time, that I actually knew people buying Wiis just to get all these games, because it would be cheaper than them going and sourcing like a NES and a SNES and then buying all these games. So it was just easier for them to do this. So they all did that, and with just how the Virtual Console was going for so well for a relatively good period of time, it just went back to being its usual self after a while, and that was kind of unfortunate. Now, at that point, the Wii U was on the horizon, so it's kind of understandable that they tapered off a little bit. But when they did announce the Virtual Console on for the Wii U, there was the horrible account transfer system, the fact that you would have to re-buy existing games. Not all the same games would even be available on it. In fact, a severely severely lower amount of games would be available on it. Even to this day, nearly 4 years after release, the Wii U Virtual Console still doesn't come close to the Wii Virtual Console. So that's another issue. We're basically, what they do is, we're getting drip-fed games. We get maybe one game a week, if we're lucky. Sometimes we might get 2 a week. Now, that's pretty rare. You might get like 2 games a week every 2 or 3 months. But usually what they do is they drip feed us one game a week, and a lot of the time it's a lower end game. Now, that's not always the case. Sure, sometimes we have good big games and stuff like that, but we get drip fed all this crap. Now, how hard can it realistically be to get all these licenses and licensing? I mean, these companies want money. Nintendo want money. It can't be rocket science, if you ask me, at least. Anyway, a lot of these companies, they've gone bust and had to sell their existing licenses to a different company. So essentially, all it means is, instead of, say, Nintendo having to go to Hudson Soft for a Bomberman license, they'll just go to Konami for a Bomberman license, because Konami own the Hudson Soft properties now. Instead of Nintendo going to, say, Squaresoft, because obviously Squaresoft is no longer around. They're a joint venture between Squaresoft and Enix now, and we all know them as Square Enix. So, I want to release Final Fantasy VI on my Virtual Console. They just go to Squaresoft and say it to them. There shouldn't be much of an issue. So we get drip fed all this crap. And the problem is that when the Nintendo NX comes out, it's most likely not going to carry your games across, which is going to be another issue. And what's the deal with the Virtual Console on there? Are they going to do the same thing? There's rumors of no emulation whatsoever. No backwards compatibility, I should say. Not emulation, but no actual backwards compatibility, which would mean that everything would have to be done through a Virtual Console of some sort. Now, fair enough, for the old stuff, the NES, SNES, N64, all that, that's not an issue. But for things like GameCube and Wii, it can be an issue. Or, well, in more recent, it would be Wii and Wii U. That would be an issue. You could throw the GameCube in there as well. It works in the same basic architecture, essentially. So, all of that, and the fact that there's no cross-buy. For example, I have Street Fighter games on my Wii Virtual Console. I have the same Street Fighter games. I think it's the same one. Yeah, it is, because they released a couple of them. So I have the Street Fighter games on the Wii, Street Fighter games on the Wii U, and just recently I had to re-buy them again on the 3DS. So that's crazy. Just just because the whole thing is done in some weird, awkward, money-grabbing way. And I hate that. So not only do we need to not be drip-fed all these games, we need an actual proper deluge of games that they can actually give us a reason to turn on. Like when I was playing Super Metroid on my 3DS the other day, because it's my new 3DS, so it has the SNES Virtual Console. So I was playing that on there, and then when I came out of the game, I have all my games organized in a folder, so I could see all my SNES games that were downloaded onto my 3DS, and I could see all these, like, wow, imagine I could just carry my 3DS around and have 40, 50, 60 high quality SNES games. I would never be off this thing. I would never stop playing it. The same with the Wii U. If you could get all the good quality stuff on the Wii U, you would have just a beast system to just play all this old stuff on. I know you're not buying these systems just for that, but it would entice you to play it more and focus on your Wii U more, talk about your Wii U more. But instead, we get this whole drip-fed one game a week, sometimes a no-name, low-level game per week. And here's another one. I actually forgot to write this one down when I was making my notes for this video. I believe it was 2015. I could be wrong, it could be 2014, but I believe it was 2015, that Nintendo actually didn't release a single Virtual Console game on the 3DS Virtual Console. Not a single game on any of their platforms they didn't release on that. What does that say to you? You know, that's a complete mishandling of the Virtual Console. There could be so much done on a Virtual Console on either platform, be it the Wii U or the NX, whatever, and the 3DS. It could all just be done so well. People will be going out in droves if they don't already own them, because people could just buy a 2DS, a cheap 2DS, or a pre-owned 3DS, or just a cheap 3DS, well, a relatively cheap 3DS, just so they could get an actual official Nintendo system with maybe 40 of their extremely high quality games from the SNES era, or whatever era, you know, NES, SNES, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, whatever, you know, just the idea is the same, just to have in their pocket on the go wherever they want. That's a fantastic idea. I would love that. I know I would personally love it. I still rue the day. I'm still waiting for the day where some of the better games I want come out on the SNES Virtual Console on the new 3DS. I realize the new 3DS Virtual Console for the SNES is relatively new, and the games that have been on there be pretty good, pretty high quality. So why not just stop drip feeding them? Why not give us a bigger and better thing? Like I said, these licensing issues and all, they can't be that hard to work around. There's no way it takes them that long and it's that hard and that many things to work through just to get one or maybe two games on there a week. No, that's a bit ridiculous if you ask me. But I know, here's where the last point of the video comes in, is the actual disparity in the regions of the Virtual Console. So there's so many games that only get released in Japan that have official English translations that could be released elsewhere, but you know, they just don't. Or then they get translated, or not translated, but then they do get a release in a different region like 2 years later, or maybe not at all. The big one I want to bring up here is on the Japanese Wii U Super Nintendo Virtual Console, there's Secret of Mana, my favorite personal game of all time. It's my #1 game. And I would love to have that. Sure, I have it on my Wii. I have it on my SNES. But I have it on my Wii. But obviously it's a bit of a pain and a hassle to turn on my Wii U, go into the Wii mode, and just do it that way. And at the same time, I would also like to be able to just turn on the Wii and use some of the, I won't say the Wii specific features, but the scaling is a little bit better. Not that it matters too much for scaling for like old SNES games and things like that, but the scaling is a little bit better. The restore points I'm not really too worried about, because sure, it could do in a pinch, it's a nice little extra feature. I'd love to be able to use my Wii U Pro controller, and I would love to be able to use the actual, sometimes I would be able to love to just play it on the screen, which would be so much better. Now I know, depending on how you do it, if you went into Wii mode, you could technically play it with the screen, but you'd also need to have it like sitting in your lap or on a desk and playing with a separate controller instead of the Wii U gamepad. So that's a whole other issue. But the fact is that Secret of Mana has been out on that for years, on the Virtual Console in in Japan, and it's nowhere to be seen anywhere else. And that kills me, because I know I'd love to have it on the Wii U. Hell, it would be perfect to have on the 3DS. I would absolutely adore it on the 3DS. That would, because I could play it where I could play my favorite game of all time in what I've experienced so far, at least anyway, with the 3DS Virtual Console, is a basically perfect I don't want to say replica. I don't want to say emulation. I don't want to say replication. Yeah, you get the idea. It's an almost perfect representation. There you go. That's a better word of the game I know and love. And to be able to play that anywhere, Jesus, that would just float my boat. That's all I can say. So that's so many issues with the Virtual Console. The fact that there's staggered releases, disparity in region releases. I don't even care too much about the price at the end of the day. That doesn't even bother me too much. It's just the whole mishandling of the whole situation, between getting drip-fed games, going massive amounts of times where games don't come out. To be honest, if I remember right as well, we were actually promised GameCube emulation as well on the Wii U Virtual Console. If I remember right, they announced DS and GameCube at the same time, but we've never got the GameCube ones yet. I could be wrong. I remember seeing the announcement for it, but I could have sworn it was GameCube and DS. But it could have been also Wii and DS, and I know we have got the Wii games. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it would be fantastic to add the GameCube games, another library of some good quality games, onto the Wii U. That'd be brilliant. So, you get the idea. That's my whole thoughts and opinions on the Virtual Console, especially with the NX coming up and the talk of it being a hybrid console that you can either plug into a dock and play on your TV, or pick it up and play it on the go with the same games and same stuff on it. That would be brilliant to have your Virtual Console on, which hopefully it allows the new My Nintendo account to unify everything and bring it all over, so you don't have to re-buy your existing Wii U Virtual Console games, Wii Virtual Console games, 3DS Virtual Console games, whatever. But the fact that you could play your favorite Virtual Console games on your TV, then pick it up and bring the system with you and play those same games with those same save files that you left off on the go, that has extreme potential. But I honestly believe that Nintendo would probably fuck it up again, and that kills me, because there's so much potential and there could be a shitload of positive buzz about it. One thing I will say is that, unfortunately, I'd never always agreed with his business practices, but Satoru Iwata was basically in charge of a lot of that stuff. And now that we have a different Nintendo president now, and hopefully he realizes that the previous way of handling it was a mistake, and hopefully he does some changes with that will see it better for the consumer. And obviously, if it's better for the consumer, it's better for Nintendo. So hopefully that's how that goes in the long run. Anyway, this video has gone on way too long, so I'm going to leave it there. Any thoughts and opinions on how Nintendo have handled the Virtual Console or the unified account system? Anything Virtual Console related, what you'd love to see on it, what your experience with the ports are, whatever, leave it all in the comment section below. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.